So Sitecore achieved a huge milestone with JSS when we went live with that at the end of last year. We basically added a whole new way to implement our clients' apps and websites. And our vision for JSS was to enable our customers to implement more modern, more dynamic apps, because they now have access to the front-end frameworks which enable them to have much more modern experiences. And we also wanted to build something that JavaScript devs actually want to use. So we achieved that by building certain things into our JSS architecture. So for the customer side, we made sure that we supported all the front-end frameworks, so which are optimized for the dynamic DOM reloading. So your sites and your apps can be really fast, and it can support really quick refreshing, really quick AJAX reloading, that kind of thing. There's more hosting and scaling options now because these apps can be hosted on node servers. And there's a quicker project kickoff time, since the project can be started in just a few commands with the CLI. And on the developer side, we really focused on what do front-end devs, what their workflow is like, what are they used to, and how can we get them started quickly without making them go and learn Sitecore. So they have a command line interface which gets them started in a few commands. The whole JSS application is built in TypeScript, so you get a lot of IntelliSense when you're building your application, which helps you, build quicker and get a lot of helpful tips. We have docs and a quick start guide. As I mentioned, you can work disconnected from Sitecore, and we built a GraphQL integration, which lets you build very detailed queries against the back end from your front end. Oh, and you can build out all of your architecture from your JavaScript layer with our manifest API. So that's what we have so far already live. But we knew that there were some holes, and some of the questions that we always get is, when will JSS be compatible with SXA? So that's one of the things that we're adding in 9.2. So in 9.2, JSS will now integrate in SXA. So what that means is we'll now be able to add JSS sites under SXA tenants. And all the scaffolding and automation that you're used to having in SXA, you'll now be able to use that in your JSS sites as well. And for example, managing your site settings through Sitecore versus through configs, also using page and partial designs, all that content authoring ease and flexibility, all that will be available in your JSS sites. The limitations are that you're still building your components with JavaScript, so you won't be able to access the drag and drop SXA components in the JSS apps. And so of course, if you can't do that, then the theming and creative exchange won't be supported in the JSS app. So let me go ahead and show you a demo of what this looks like. So here we have a totally disconnected JSS app. There's no Sitecore running here right now. I'm working from localhost 3000, and if I look at my debugger, I see that this is built from React. There's React components there. So once we have a JSS app built locally, the next thing that a developer will want to do is to deploy this to Sitecore. So with the JSS SXA integration, there are some new branch templates available now to help this process. So what I can do now is add a JSS tenant, and then under that I can add a JSS site with just a few clicks. So what this does is register my JSS app with Sitecore so that Sitecore knows about it and knows how to serve it. And then I will need to provide my deployment secret to finish the scaffolding. But that's all that's required to make the connection happen. So here's where I'm adding the deployment secret from my app that I built locally when I was in disconnected mode. And so this will run, and now it's created my JSS site in my Essex tenant. So this gives me a shell of a site, and by itself, it's not very useful. So now what I want to do is deploy everything that I've built locally in disconnected mode into what I have in my Sitecore instance. So to do that, I'm going to use the command line interface to run JSS deploy app. I'm going to use the C flag to deploy my content items and the D flag to deploy my dictionary items. And so what this will do is build my application and then generate a manifest from all my local files in the app, and then go ahead and deploy them into Sitecore. And so now, if I go back to Content Editor and reload the home page, I can see that I have 2 new pages. So these pages were built in the JSS app, but now they're available here. And one thing to note is that here I have the site settings item. So we can see that instead of modifying the site settings in configs, I can manage them here in Page Editor. And going back to Experience Editor, if I go into edit mode, all the components work with inline editing as you would expect for normal Sitecore components. So my JSS app is now inside of SXA and works, a content author can just edit it inline. So now let's go down to this footer. Here's the exciting part and probably the best part about this integration. So I have some components in this footer, and what I want to do is, instead of having to add them on every single page, I just want to build them one time and have them automatically inserted on every page. So in SXA, there's a feature called partial designs, which lets me do that. So now that I have this in my SXA tenant, I can make that happen here. So what I'm going to do is get rid of the components here, and by scaffolding out the JSS site, the branch template had created a folder for me where I can make partials in my JSS site. So under this presentation folder, there's a folder for partial designs. So I'm going to go ahead and build out a partial for my footer. And then I need to create a page design as well. So I'm going to build out my footer here as a partial, and then I'll be able to add it to all of my pages, and then I can manage my footer just in one place. So this is really handy for content authors. It centralizes their editing, and it's a much better experience. So here I am editing the footer under the partial. And if I go ahead and move the data source items from where they were underneath the page to the partial folder, and then I can add them to my partial. All right, so going back to the home page, now we should have a footer here. Oh, okay. So we need to associate the page with the partial. So we do that in the Experience Accelerator tab. So we need to associate the route, which is the default. So the app route is the default JSS route that comes with JSS, and that's what I use to build out these pages. So I've associated the app route with our partial, and now once I save this, then we should see the footer on all of our pages. So there it is on our home page, and if I go to the success page, then it should be there as well. So perfect. So that's JSS with SXA. Not done. All right, so the next thing that we're always asked about, what happened? is JSS and forms. So in 9.2, we're finally supporting JSS with forms. So everything that you're able to build in MVC forms, that will now work in JSS. So the forms are rendered fully client-side, so the layout service will be serving the form data as JSON, and then your front-end JavaScript components will be taking that JSON data and then serving it with JavaScript components. So there are many extensibility points for you to customize the form markup and the way that it acts. Out of the box, we're shipping with React forms. And so if you need Vue or Angular, that will need to be built. So let's see a demo. So here is the Sitecore's form builder. So nothing special here. This is I've just built a simple form for the demo. I've made it a two-step form. And so there's nothing JSS special here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the success page to be one of the pages that we deployed from the JSS app. And because I want to add this form into our partial so that it shows up in all of the footers. Now, so this is the code for the form. So we can see that with 9.2, there's a new package that's being exposed in JSS. So it's called JSS React Forms. And this is exposes a form component. So we pass it the fields. We pass it the Sitecore host that's used to post those fields to and maintain the state. We hook into one of its extensibility points on redirect to hook it up to, so that instead of using window.location, we're using the React router, history.push, so that when the success page is shown, we will actually refresh the browser. And if you use a different router, like reach router, then you can patch that in here. And we are hooking into another extensibility point here to wrap another field, to wrap every field with another rendering with a React component. So this lets you customize the markup. And this is showing that there's more options, the field factory. So for example, if you want to customize like how a text field renders, then you can do that with the field factory. So lots of extensibility points. You can make the form look however you want. So I've gone back to my form and added a data source, and it's showing me an error that it's the wrong content resolver. So what does that mean? So if we go to the layout service, if we see what data it's feeding our components, we can see that it's serializing the form data source as just a normal Sitecore item. And that's not very helpful for us for rendering a form because we need the actual like the form rules, the two-step information and all that. So what we have to do is go to our rendering definition and go to the rendering contents resolver field. And in 9.2, there's a new type of rendering content resolver available for forms. And once we make that change, then we see that the layout service is now giving us more information about the form. So it's telling us the form session ID, the anti-forgery token, and is giving us all the information about the fields that will let our React component render it. So now if we refresh, we should see the form. Perfect. So one more thing I'm going to do is, since this form is in the footer, so it's going to be on every page, and I don't want to show it on the success page, obviously, so I'm going to add a personalization rule to hide the form on the success page. So just a simple match on the page type so that we don't see the form there, and then we'll only see the success message. So going to the, so it's saved. So now I'm on the success page in preview mode, and we see that the form is not shown. So everything is working. Okay, so now time to test stuff out. So going to the home page, there's our form, the GDPR, and we're going to open up the network tab to see what's happening when we go to the second step. So it's actually going off to the server. So hitting the second step is a hit to the server and a fetch to the layout service, which is good, because if we want to make a customization there, we were able to do that. So there we see our success page. And let me show you an implementation of a customization on the second step. So if I come here again, but this time I'm going to pick a different quest, and you will see that there'll be different options on the second page. So now it's asking me for my favorite color. So this was done by hooking into the layout service when it returned back that second step. So now if we go back to the form builder, we can check our responses. And there they are. So that's JSS with SXA with Sitecore forms. There's a few more features coming out with 9.2 and JSS, but Peter only gave me 15 minutes. So follow the Sitecore JSS hashtag on Twitter. We'll be posting updates. That's it.